The glass door exploded inward as 8-year-old Sophie Chen crashed through it, her white party dress torn and splattered with blood. She was screaming, not crying, screaming a sound that made every person in the Chen Industries lobby freeze mid-step. "He's killing her! Someone help my mom! They're killing my mom in the parking garage!" Security guards rushed forward. Executives dropped their phones. The night receptionist reached for 911, but Sophie ran past all of them straight to the man in the gray maintenance uniform mopping the marble floor in the corner. "Mr. Marcus, please." Her small hands grabbed his shirt, leaving bloody handprints. "She won't wake up. There's so much blood. You have to save her now." What nobody in that lobby knew, what nobody had known for 4 years, was that the quiet janitor they'd ignored every single night used to have a very different job. One that involved saving lives in the worst places on Earth. Comment below what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled. Marcus Webb set down his mop with the same deliberate care he did everything. His weathered hands, scarred in ways that made people look away, steadied Sophie's trembling shoulders. His voice came out low and calm, the kind of calm that cuts through chaos like a surgical blade. "Sophie, look at me. Just me." Her wild eyes locked onto his. "Where exactly is your mother?" "P parking garage. Sub-level 3, Section E. There's 2 men and they—" Her voice cracked. "They hit her. She fell down and then they ran, and Mrs. Rodriguez is with her, but Mom won't wake up and—" "How long ago?" "I don't know. 5 minutes. Maybe more." "Mr. Marcus, please." He was already moving. Not running. Marcus Webb didn't run unless it was tactical, but he moved with a purpose that made people step aside without knowing why. The security guard, a kid named Tommy, who couldn't be more than 23, tried to intercept him. "Sir, you can't. Call 911. Tell them we have a trauma victim unconscious, possible head injury, and internal bleeding. Tell them to have a trauma team standing by." Marcus kept walking. "Tell them it's critical. Time matters." "Who the hell are you two?" Marcus turned. For just a second, something flickered in his gray eyes. Something cold and absolute that made Tommy take a step back. "Make the call, now." Tommy made the call. Sophie grabbed Marcus's hand as they reached the elevator. Her fingers were ice cold. He could feel her pulse hammering in her wrist. 160 beats per minute, maybe more. Shock setting in. He squeezed her hand once. "Your mom's going to be okay." "How do you know?" "Because I won't let her die." The words came out with such quiet certainty that Sophie believed him. She didn't know why, but she did. The elevator descended in agonizing silence. Marcus's mind had already shifted into a mode he'd locked away 6 years ago. Combat medicine. Battlefield triage. He was calculating probable injuries based on Sophie's description. Adult female blunt force trauma, loss of consciousness, unable to wake, likely concussion at minimum, possibly skull fracture. If the attackers had hit her in the torso, there could be internal bleeding. Liver, spleen, kidneys. Time to deterioration, minutes, not hours. The doors opened onto sub-level 3. Marcus heard it before he saw it. A woman's voice, high and frantic, speaking rapid Spanish into a phone. He followed the sound through the concrete pillars, Sophie running beside him. Then he saw them. Victoria Chen lay on the oil-stained concrete between 2 parked cars. Her silk blouse was torn. Her face was swelling, one eye already purple and sealed shut. Her left arm bent at an angle that made Marcus's jaw tighten. Mrs. Rodriguez, the weekend nanny, knelt beside her phone, pressed to her ear with shaking hands. "Yes. Chen Industries, 4800 Riverside Boulevard, sub-level 3 parking. Please hurry, please." Marcus dropped to his knees beside Victoria. Mrs. Rodriguez looked up, startled. "Who are you?" "Someone who can help. How long has she been unconscious?" "I don't know, maybe 6-7 minutes." "I heard Sophie screaming, and we came down and found her like this, and those men, they ran. Did you see them?" "2 men, masks. They had a black SUV. I didn't see the plate." Marcus wasn't listening anymore. His hands moved with swift precision, checking Victoria's neck for stability, checking her airway clear but shallow breathing. He checked her pulse rapid and thready around 120. Her skin was cool and clammy. Early signs of shock. "Sophie." He didn't look up. "There's a canvas bag under my uniform shirt. Get it, now." Sophie stared. "What?" "The bag. Across my chest. I need it." She hesitated only a second, then reached under his gray maintenance shirt. Her fingers found the strap of something he always wore, always, even though he'd promised himself he'd never need it again. She pulled it free, a weathered canvas field bag, military issue, the kind medics carried in places where hospitals didn't exist. Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes went wide. "What is that?" "Why do you have—" "Call 911 back. Tell them we need a trauma team on standby. Tell them unconscious patient, probable TBI, suspected internal bleeding, possible fracture to the left humerus and radius. Vitals are BP dropping, pulse 120, and climbing, respiration shallow at 22 per minute. Tell them we need an OR prepped for emergency surgery." Mrs. Rodriguez stared at him like he'd started speaking another language. "Now," she called. Marcus unzipped the bag. Inside was equipment that didn't belong in a janitor's possession. Hemostatic combat gauze, quick clot powder, a collapsible cervical collar, surgical tape, trauma shears, a field intubation kit, Israeli battle dressings, everything organized with military precision, everything within muscle memory reach. He worked fast, cut away the torn blouse to assess torso injuries, severe bruising forming across the right rib cage, likely fractured ribs, possible pneumothorax. He listened to her breathing, heard a slight wheeze on the right side. Not good. He palpated her abdomen, rigid and distended. Definitely internal bleeding. "Sophie, I need you to talk to your mom. Tell her you're here. Tell her she's going to be okay." "Will she hear me?" "Maybe, maybe not, but you need to try." Sophie knelt down, her voice breaking. "Mom? It's me. It's Sophie. Mr. Marcus is here. He's helping you. You're going to be okay. You have to be okay. Because my dance recital is next week, and you promised you'd come and—" Her voice dissolved into sobs. Marcus applied the cervical collar with practiced efficiency. He packed the head wound with hemostatic gauze. There was a laceration on the back of her skull where she'd hit concrete, bleeding steadily but not arterial. He splinted the broken arm using materials from his bag and his belt. He positioned her in recovery position to protect her airway. Every movement was textbook battlefield medicine. Every decision calculated based on combat triage protocols developed in places like Fallujah and Kandahar. Mrs. Rodriguez hung up, staring at him. They said 5 minutes. Who are you?" Marcus didn't answer. He was listening to Victoria's breathing. The wheeze was getting worse. Tension, pneumothorax developing. If her lung collapsed before the ambulance arrived, she'd die. He pulled out a 14-gauge needle from his kit. "What is that?" Mrs. Rodriguez's voice pitched up. "What are you doing? Her lung is collapsing. I need to decompress it. You're going to stab her with a needle." "If I don't, she dies before the ambulance gets here." He found the landmark second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. His hands were steady. He'd done this procedure 17 times in combat. 17 times in the back of helicopters and bombed out buildings and desert trenches. 17 times when there was no choice. He inserted the needle. There was a hiss of escaping air. Victoria's breathing immediately eased. The wheeze disappeared. Mrs. Rodriguez crossed herself, whispering prayers in Spanish. In the distance, sirens wailed, getting closer. Marcus checked his watch. 7 minutes since Sophie had found him. Victoria's pulse had stabilized at 115. Breathing was steady at 18 per minute. Color was returning to her face. She was still unconscious, but she was stable. She'd make it to the hospital. He'd done his job. The ambulance crew crashed through the garage entrance, two paramedics pushing a gurney moving fast. The lead medic was a black woman in her 40s with close-cropped gray hair. She took one look at the scene, and her expression shifted from urgency to confusion. "Who did this?" She gestured at Victoria, the collar, the splint, the packed wounds, the needle decompression still in place. "Who performed first response?" "I did." Marcus stepped back. The medic knelt down, checking his work with swift efficiency. Her eyebrows climbed higher with each assessment. Collar properly applied. Wound packed with hemostatic gauze. Splint is textbook. "And you?" She looked at the needle. "You did a needle decompression in a parking garage." She was developing tension pneumothorax. She wouldn't have made it. The medic looked up at him. Really looked at him. At his scarred hands. At the military-grade trauma bag. At the absolute calm in his eyes. "Who are you?" "Just someone who knew what to do." "This is Special Forces level medicine." "Where'd you learn this?" Marcus didn't answer. He was watching them load Victoria onto the gurney, watching them secure her neck, watching them start an IV line. They were good. Fast and competent. She was in good hands now. "Sir, I need your name for the report." "Marcus Webb." "You ex-military. Used to be." "Medic." Marcus hesitated. Then, something like that. The medic studied him another moment, then nodded slowly. "Well, Mr. Webb, you just saved this woman's life. That needle decompression bought her the time she needed. If you hadn't done that—" She shook her head. "We'd be doing CPR right now." They loaded Victoria into the ambulance. Sophie tried to climb in after her. "Sweetie, you can't ride with us." The medic's voice was gentle. "We need space to work on your mom." "I'm not leaving her." Marcus put a hand on Sophie's shoulder. "Sophie, they need room to help her. Mrs. Rodriguez will take you to the hospital. You'll see your mom there." "Promise?" "I promise." Sophie looked up at him with desperate, trusting eyes. Then she threw her arms around his waist and held on tight. Marcus stood there awkward, his hands hovering over her back. He wasn't used to being hugged. Hadn't been in a long time. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving my mom." The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing. Marcus watched it go. Then he turned and walked back toward the elevator. Tommy, the security guard, was waiting there with two police officers. "Mr. Webb, I'm Officer Chen, no relation to the victim. I need to ask you some questions." "Later. I need to—" "Sir, this is a crime scene. You were first on scene. I need a statement." Marcus stopped, turned around. Two suspects, both male, approximately 6 feet tall based on the victim's injuries. They wore ski masks. They attacked Victoria Chen, likely looking for something. They fled in a black SUV direction unknown. The victim has evidence of assault, blunt force trauma to the head and torso, defensive wounds on the arms. This wasn't random. They knew her. Officer Chen's pen stopped moving. "You got all that from looking at her?" "Yes." "Are you a detective?" "No." "Then how—" "Experience." Marcus's voice was flat. "Now, if you're done, I have work to finish." He walked away before they could stop him. Back into the elevator. Back up to the lobby. Back to his mop and bucket still standing where he'd left them 20 minutes ago. His hands were shaking now. Just slightly. Nobody would notice unless they were looking for it. He picked up his mop and went back to cleaning the floor. Back to being invisible. Back to being nobody. But Tommy, the security guard, was watching him with new eyes. And Mrs. Rodriguez was already on the phone telling someone, anyone, everyone about the janitor with the military trauma kit who'd saved Victoria Chen's life like he'd done it 100 times before. And Sophie was sitting in Mrs. Rodriguez's car, on the way to the hospital, staring at the bloody handprints on her white dress, thinking about the look in Mr. Marcus's eyes when he'd said, "I won't let her die." Like he'd made that promise before. Like he'd broken it before. Like this time he couldn't afford to break it again. Nobody knew who Marcus Webb really was. Not yet. But they were about to find out. Marcus made it exactly 45 minutes before they found him again. He was in the basement level stripping and waxing the executive bathroom floors when Detective James Morrison walked in. Morrison was in his late 50s, gray at the temples, with the kind of tired eyes that came from seeing too much human ugliness for too long. He stood in the doorway, watching Marcus work for a full 30 seconds before he spoke. "You're a hard man to track down, Mr. Webb." Marcus didn't look up. "I'm working." "I can see that." Morrison stepped inside his shoes, squeaking on the wet floor. "Mind if we talk while you work?" "Yes." "I'm going to talk anyway." Morrison pulled out a notebook. "Victoria Chen is in surgery. Ruptured spleen, 3 fractured ribs, subdural hematoma. The doctors say if you hadn't stabilized her, if you hadn't done that needle decompression, she would have died before reaching the hospital. They say your work was, and I'm quoting here, military-grade battlefield medicine performed with textbook precision." Marcus kept waxing the floor. Long, even strokes, the same motion repeated over and over. Meditative. "So naturally, I got curious." Morrison flipped through his notebook. "I ran your name. Marcus Webb. 42 years old. Resident of the city for 4 years. Prior to that, nothing. It's like you didn't exist before you showed up here. No credit history before 4 years ago. No employment records. No nothing." "That's not a crime." "No, it's not. But then I ran your fingerprints, the ones you left on the IV bag when you were helping the paramedics. And that's when things got interesting." Morrison's voice changed slightly. "Captain Marcus Webb, United States Navy, Medical Corps, 3 combat tours Iraq and Afghanistan. Navy Cross for Valor, 2 Silver Stars, specialty trauma surgery and forward operating bases. You were one of the best battlefield surgeons the Navy had, 43 confirmed saves under enemy fire." Marcus's hands stopped moving, just for a second. Then he continued waxing. "You left the service 6 years ago, honorable discharge. After that you vanished. No medical license renewal, no employment in your field, nothing, until you show up here working as a night janitor." Morrison paused. "Want to tell me why a decorated Navy surgeon is mopping floors at 3 in the morning? No. Fair enough. But here's what I need to know. Those men who attacked Victoria Chen, they were looking for something. Documents, probably. She's been investigating embezzlement in her company. Large scale. We think her CFO David Sterling is behind it. We think he ordered the attack." That made Marcus look up. He tried to have her killed over money. Looks that way. She'd scheduled an emergency board meeting for this morning. She was going to expose him. He needed to stop her, or at least scare her into backing down. Morrison's jaw tightened. "Problem is, we don't have enough evidence yet. Sterling's smart, covers his tracks, and now the one person who has all the evidence is unconscious in surgery. What do you want from me?" "I want you to tell me if you saw anything. The attackers, the vehicle, anything that might help." Marcus set down his waxing cloth. "Black SUV, late model Escalade, maybe 3 years old. Temporary plates, which means they were either stolen or the vehicle was just purchased. 2 men, both approximately 6 feet tall, 180 to 200 pounds. The one who hit Victoria first, he favored his right hand. There was hesitation in his movement. Not a professional. The second one was more controlled. He's done this before." Morrison stared at him. "You got all that from a parking garage where you arrived after they'd already left. I read the scene, blood spatter patterns, defensive wounds, the way the victim was positioned. You learn to see things when you work trauma long enough." "Jesus." Morrison shook his head slowly. "Why are you wasting yourself here?" Marcus picked up his cloth again. "I'm not wasting anything. I'm exactly where I need to be. Mopping floors. Living quietly." Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he said more gently, "I read your file, all of it. I know about Syria." Marcus's hands stopped moving again. This time they didn't start back up. "I know about Dr. Sarah Webb." Morrison's voice was careful now, like he was approaching a wounded animal. "Your wife. I know she was killed in a convoy bombing. I know you were in surgery when it happened. I know you worked 22 hours straight trying to save the survivors from that attack." He paused. "I know you saved 13 people that day, but you couldn't save her. Get out." "Mr. Webb." "I said get out." Marcus's voice was very quiet, very controlled, the kind of control that came from holding back something dangerous. "You got your statement. You know what I saw. Now leave." Morrison hesitated. Then he pulled out a business card and set it on the counter. "If you remember anything else, or if you just want to talk." He left. Marcus stood there in the empty bathroom for a long time, staring at nothing. Then he picked up Morrison's card and threw it in the trash. He went back to waxing the floor. The motion was meditative, predictable, safe. He worked until dawn. Victoria woke up 3 days later. The first thing she saw was Sophie curled up in the chair beside the hospital bed, dark hair falling across her face, still wearing the same torn white dress. Someone had tried to clean the blood out, but the stains remained. The second thing she saw was the machines. Monitors beeping steadily, IV lines running into her arm, oxygen tube in her nose. The third thing she felt was pain. Enormous consuming pain that radiated from everywhere at once. She tried to speak. Nothing came out but a croak. Sophie's eyes flew open. "Mom!" She launched herself at the bed. Victoria tried to lift her arms to hold her daughter, but her left arm was in a cast, immobilized. She managed to get her right arm around Sophie, pulling her close, breathing in the scent of her daughter's shampoo, mixed with fear, sweat, and tears. "Baby," she whispered. "I'm okay. I'm okay." "You weren't okay. You were dying, and there was so much blood, and—" Sophie's voice cracked. "Mr. Marcus saved you. He did things, medical things, and the ambulance people said you would have died, but he saved you." Victoria's mind was foggy from painkillers. "Who?" "Mr. Marcus, the janitor. Except he's not really a janitor. He used to be a Navy doctor, and he had this bag with all these medical things, and he knew exactly what to do, and—" Sophie was talking so fast, the words tumbled over each other. "The detective came, and they said he's a hero, a real war hero, and he saved you just like he saved people in the war." The memories came back in fragments. The parking garage, the two men, the masks, the voice asking about files, the pain, then nothing, just darkness. Where is he now? Victoria's throat felt like sandpaper. "I need to thank him." "Nobody knows. He left after the ambulance took you. The police tried to find him, but he—" Sophie looked down. "He just went back to work, like nothing happened." Before Victoria could process that, the door opened. A doctor came in, tall, South Asian, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Ms. Chen, I'm Dr. Patel. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck." "That's accurate." Dr. Patel checked her monitors. "You had a ruptured spleen, which we removed, 3 fractured ribs, subdural hematoma, which we drained, fractured arm, severe concussion. You're lucky to be alive." "My daughter said a janitor helped me, before the ambulance." Dr. Patel's expression changed. "The paramedics told me about him. Said he performed a needle decompression in a parking garage with what sounds like a military field kit. Do you know who he is?" "Not really. He works in my building." "Well, he saved your life. That needle decompression, you were developing tension pneumothorax. Your lung was collapsing. If he hadn't relieved the pressure, you would have gone into cardiac arrest before reaching the hospital." Dr. Patel paused. "Whoever he is, he knows trauma medicine at an expert level. That's not something you learn from a weekend first aid course." After Dr. Patel left, Victoria lay there trying to piece together what she knew. Marcus Webb, the quiet man who cleaned her building every night, the man her daughter had befriended, the man she'd barely noticed in 4 years. That man was apparently a decorated war hero who carried military medical equipment and saved lives in parking garages like it was routine. "Sophie," she said quietly. Tell me about Mr. Marcus. Everything you know. Sophie climbed back into the chair, tucking her legs under her. He's nice. He listens when I talk. He doesn't treat me like I'm just a kid. How did you meet him? You know those Thursday nights when you work late and I'm supposed to stay in the lobby playroom? Sometimes I get bored and Sophie looked guilty. I explore. The basement levels. That's where I found him. He was fixing a water leak and I asked him what he was doing and he explained it to me like I was a real person, not just a kid in the way. Victoria should probably be concerned that her 8-year-old was wandering unsupervised in basement levels. But she was too tired and in too much pain to lecture right now. After that, I'd go find him sometimes. He'd teach me things. How to tie knots. How to tell if someone's choking and what to do. How to check if someone's breathing. Sophie's voice dropped. He said everyone should know basic first aid because you never know when you might need to save someone. Did he ever talk about himself, about his past? Sophie shook her head. Never. I asked once where he learned all that medical stuff and he just said, I used to work in hospitals. But he didn't want to talk about it, so I stopped asking. The door opened again. This time, it was Detective Morrison, with a younger woman in a dark suit FBI Victoria guessed from the badge clipped to her belt. Ms. Chen, I'm Special Agent Sarah Kim, FBI. I need to ask you some questions about the attack. Victoria nodded, wincing at the movement. Do you remember anything about your attackers? 2 men, ski masks. One of them. She closed her eyes, trying to focus through the pain fog. His voice, I recognized it. Marcus Holloway. He works in my finance department. He's David Sterling's assistant. Agent Kim exchanged a glance with Morrison. You're certain? 90%. The voice was muffled, but I've heard him speak 1,000 times. It was him. What did they want? Files. Backup files. I've been investigating David Sterling, my CFO. He's been embezzling from the company for at least 2 years, maybe longer. I found evidence shell companies fake invoices offshore accounts. $17 million minimum. Victoria's voice hardened despite the exhaustion. I was going to present everything at a board meeting. He knew. Someone must have told him. We've been building a case against Sterling for 6 months, Agent Kim said. Financial Crimes Division. But we didn't have enough for an indictment. If you have documentation. I have everything, copies in 3 different locations. He can't make it disappear. Where? Victoria told them. Agent Kim made notes, then looked up. We'll execute search warrants on Sterling's home and office today. With your evidence, and if we can flip Holloway, we can make charges stick. What about the attack on my mother? Sophie spoke up, her voice fierce. Are you going to arrest them for that too? Agent Kim's expression softened. Yes, sweetheart. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. They're going away for a very long time. After they left, Victoria sagged back against the pillows. Sophie climbed onto the bed, carefully curling against her mother's good side. Mom. Yeah, baby. I was so scared. I thought you were dead. There was so much blood, and you weren't moving, and... Sophie's voice broke. I didn't know what to do. But then I remembered Mr. Marcus. I remembered he always knows what to do when someone's hurt. So I ran to find him. Victoria stroked her daughter's hair. You were brave. You saved my life by getting him. He saved your life. I just knew who to ask. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Why does a Navy doctor work as a janitor? That doesn't make sense. I don't know, baby, but I'm going to find out. It took Victoria 2 more days before she was strong enough to make calls. Her assistant Jennifer came to the hospital with Victoria's laptop and phone, both recovered from the parking garage. The board is in chaos, Jennifer reported. She was 28, whip-smart, fiercely loyal. Sterling hasn't been arrested yet, but everyone knows something's wrong. He's been in his office with lawyers all day. The FBI showed up this morning with warrants. Good. What about... Victoria hesitated. What about Marcus Webb, the janitor? Jennifer's expression changed. That's the thing. Nobody can find him. He hasn't been to work since the night you were attacked. Hasn't answered his phone. His apartment building manager said he paid his rent 3 months in advance last week, which is weird. It's like he's getting ready to disappear. Yeah. Victoria looked at Sophie, who was coloring in the corner of the hospital room. Then back at Jennifer. I need you to find him. Hire a private investigator if you have to. I don't care what it costs. Find Marcus Webb. Why, I know he saved your life, but because a man doesn't go from decorated Navy surgeon to janitor without a reason. Because he saved my life and then vanished. Because my daughter trusts him more than she trusts most adults. Victoria's voice was firm. Because something happened to him, something that broke him badly enough that he's been hiding for 4 years. And because... She paused, not sure how to articulate it. Because I need to understand who he really is. Jennifer nodded. I'll find him. She did. It took 3 days and a very expensive private investigator, but she found him. Marcus Webb was living in a studio apartment 6 blocks from Chen Industries. Rent $800 a month for a place that should have been condemned. The building was a converted warehouse with paper-thin walls and heating that barely worked. The kind of place where people didn't ask questions and neighbors didn't talk to each other. The investigator's report included more, much more. Captain Marcus Webb, Navy Medical Corps. 3 tours of duty. Iraq twice, Afghanistan once. Deployed to some of the worst combat zones America had been in for the past decade. Stationed primarily at forward operating bases, where the Navy ran field hospitals that treated both coalition forces and local civilians. 43 confirmed saves under fire. That was the official number. The actual number was probably higher. Those were just the ones documented. Navy Cross for Valor after pulling 3 wounded Marines from a burning vehicle while under active enemy fire, then performing surgery on all 3 in the back of a helicopter. 2 silver stars. 1 for operating for 18 straight hours during a mass casualty event while the base was under mortar attack. 1 for Victoria stopped reading. Stared at the date. 6 years ago. The report continued. Dr. Sarah Webb, Navy nurse, killed in IED attack on medical supply convoy outside Kandahar. 12 casualties total. Captain Marcus Webb performed emergency surgery on 13 survivors brought back to base. Worked 22 hours straight. All 13 survived. His wife did not. 3 months later, Marcus Webb requested discharge. Honorable. Received full benefits. Left the service. Medical license allowed to lapse. No contact with former colleagues. Disappeared. Until he showed up in this city 4 years ago, working night maintenance. Victoria read the report 3 times. Then she called Jennifer. Find out which hospital he volunteers at. What? Sophie said he teaches first aid classes. Find out where. Jennifer called back an hour later. St. Anthony's Community Center, Inner City. He teaches CPR and basic trauma response twice a week. Has been for 3 years. Get me his schedule. Victoria, you're still recovering. You shouldn't. Get me his schedule. 2 days later, Victoria checked herself out of the hospital against Dr. Patel's strong recommendations. Sophie and Jennifer helped her into the car. She was still in pain, still weak, but she could move. That was enough. Where are we going? Sophie asked. To find Mr. Marcus. St. Anthony's Community Center was in the kind of neighborhood where people didn't make eye contact with strangers. Graffiti on the walls. Bars on windows. The center itself was a converted church, the old stone facade crumbling but still standing. Inside, a class was in progress. Marcus stood at the front of a room full of teenagers, maybe 15 kids ranging from 14 to 18. Street kids mostly. The kind who'd aged out of the foster system or run away from bad homes. The kind society forgot about. He was demonstrating CPR on a mannequin. His voice was calm, patient, clear. 30 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. You count it out loud so you maintain rhythm. The compressions need to be at least 2 inches deep. That's about this much pressure, he demonstrated. And you don't stop. Even if your arms get tired, even if you think it's not working, you keep going until help arrives, or until you physically cannot continue. Because those compressions are the only thing keeping blood flowing to their brain. You stop, they die. Understand? The kids nodded, watching intently. Now, who wants to try? A girl, maybe 16, raised her hand tentatively. Marcus waved her forward. Good. Show me what you do. She knelt by the mannequin, positioned her hands the way he'd shown, started compressions. She counted out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. Deeper, Marcus said. You're not going to hurt it. Push hard enough to compress the chest, like this. He guided her hands, showing her the proper pressure. There, that's it. Keep going. Victoria watched from the doorway. Watched this man who'd saved her life teaching kids how to save lives. Watched the way he moved, patient, encouraging, completely focused on making sure they understood. Okay, good. Now rescue breaths. You tilt the head back to open the airway, like this. Check that nothing's blocking. Their mouth. Pinch their nose. Seal your mouth over theirs and breathe. Watch their chest. It should rise. If it doesn't rise, reposition and try again. The girl did it. Not perfectly, but well enough. Excellent. You just saved someone's life. Marcus's voice held the faintest trace of warmth. Next. Another kid stepped up, then another. Marcus worked with each one individually, correcting technique, explaining why each step mattered, making sure they understood this wasn't theoretical, this was real. This could mean the difference between someone living or dying. Victoria waited until the class ended. Waited until the kids had filed out, laughing and joking with each other, the knowledge fresh in their minds. Then she stepped into the room. Marcus was packing up his training supplies. He looked up, saw her, and froze. Ms. Chen. Victoria. He stood there, clearly calculating whether he could just walk past her and leave, deciding he probably couldn't. You should still be in the hospital. Probably. But I needed to find you. Why? To thank you. You saved my life. You already said thank you, in the parking garage, before the ambulance left. I was barely conscious. That doesn't count. Victoria took a careful step forward. Her ribs protested, but she ignored them. They told me what you did, the needle decompression, the way you stabilized me. Dr. Patel said I would have died without it. He's right, you would have. The bluntness of it startled her. You don't sugarcoat things, do you? No point, it's true. Marcus zipped up his bag. You had tension pneumothorax developing. The collapsed lung was putting pressure on your heart. Another 3 minutes and you would have gone into cardiac arrest. The paramedics were still 5 minutes out. Math is simple. How did you know what to do? I'm trained. You're a surgeon, a Navy surgeon. You saved 43 people in combat zones. His jaw tightened. You investigated me. Of course I did. A janitor with military trauma equipment who performs battlefield medicine in parking garages, I needed to know who you were. You know who I am. Marcus Webb. I mop your floors. That's not who you are. That's what you do. There's a difference. Marcus started toward the door. Victoria moved to block him, or tried to. She moved too fast and gasped, her hand going to her ribs. He was there instantly, his hand under her elbow, steadying her. You shouldn't be walking around. You had major surgery 3 days ago. I needed to see you. You've seen me. Go home. Rest. Why? The word burst out. Why are you working as a janitor when you could be saving lives, when you're clearly still... She gestured at his bag. You carry that equipment everywhere. You teach these kids. You volunteer at a free clinic. You're still a doctor. So why aren't you practicing? Because I quit. Why? His eyes went cold, flat. That's not your business. You made it my business when you saved my life. I did what anyone with training would have done. No, anyone with training would have kept her stable until the paramedics arrived. You went beyond that. You performed procedures most ER doctors wouldn't attempt outside a hospital. Victoria's voice was fierce despite her exhaustion. You're brilliant, you're wasted, and you're hiding. You don't know anything about me. I know about Sarah. The words hit him like a physical blow. He stepped back, his face going white. Don't. I know she was your wife. I know she died in a convoy bombing. I know you were in surgery and couldn't save her. Get out. His voice was shaking. Get out now. I know you blame yourself, but it wasn't your fault. You don't know what it was. You weren't there. No, but I know what it's like to lose someone and feel like it's your fault. I know what it's like to work yourself to death, trying to prove you're good enough. I know what it's like to be alone, even when you're surrounded by people. Victoria's voice cracked. And I know what it's like when someone saves you and you realize maybe you don't have to do everything alone. Marcus stood there breathing hard, his hands clenched into fists. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. She died because I let her go on that convoy. She wanted to go. Said the village clinic needed supplies and someone had to deliver them. I told her it was too dangerous. We argued. Then I let her go anyway, because I was scheduled for surgery and I thought we'd have time later to finish the argument, to make up, to... His voice broke. I was operating on a kid with a perforated bowel when they brought the casualties back. 13 people. Some of them I knew. Guys from our unit, Sarah's friends. I worked on all of them, saved all of them. But she was already dead. She died instantly in the blast. There was nothing. He stopped, swallowed hard. There was nothing I could have done. But that doesn't matter, because I'm alive and she's not. And I don't get to be a surgeon anymore when I couldn't save the one person who mattered. Victoria took a step toward him, then another. She reached out and took his hand. He flinched, but didn't pull away. My daughter was 8 years old when she found me dying in that parking garage, Victoria said quietly. She ran past security guards, past executives, past everyone who should have been able to help. And she ran to you. Because she knew somehow, she knew that you were the one person who could save me. And you did. You saved me for her. Because you couldn't let her lose her mother the way you lost your wife. Marcus didn't say anything, but his hand tightened on hers. You're not dead, Marcus. You're hiding. There's a difference. Victoria's voice was gentle but firm. And I think maybe it's time to stop hiding. Because there are people who need you. Kids who need to learn what you're teaching them. Patients who need the skills you have. And maybe... She paused. Maybe you need them too. He pulled his hand away, stepped back. His face was unreadable. I can't. Why not? Because every time I think about practicing medicine again, I see her face. I see all the things I couldn't save, and His voice dropped to almost nothing. I can't survive failing again. Then don't fail. That's not how it works. No. But you don't fail by hiding either. You just exist, half alive. Victoria met his eyes. Is that what Sarah would want? For you to spend the rest of your life mopping floors because you survived and she didn't? Don't tell me what she'd want. I think she'd want you to live. Really live. Not just exist. Marcus stood there for a long moment. Then he picked up his bag and walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the frame, not looking back. Thank you for coming, but I can't help you. I'm not asking you to help me. I'm asking you to help yourself. He left without another word. Victoria stood there, in the empty community center, exhausted and in pain, wondering if she'd just made everything worse. But 3 days later, everything changed. David Sterling was arrested at his home in the middle of the night. FBI agents with a warrant and evidence that couldn't be explained away. Marcus Holloway flipped the moment they showed him the security footage and told him he was facing 25 to life. He gave them everything: phone records, payment records, details of the attack. Sterling's exact words when he ordered them to handle the problem. The next morning, Chen Industries' board of directors held an emergency meeting, and Marcus Webb received a phone call that would change everything. The phone call came at 6 in the morning while Marcus was running. He did that every day, 10 miles through the empty streets before dawn, pushing himself until his lungs burned and his legs screamed, trying to outrun thoughts that never got tired. The phone vibrated in his pocket 3 miles in. He almost didn't answer. Webb. Mr. Webb, this is Jennifer Torres, Victoria Chen's assistant. Ms. Chen needs to see you, today. I'm working tonight. She can find me then. This isn't about thanking you again. It's business. The board meeting is at 9. She wants you there. Why would I? David Sterling will be there. He made bail. His lawyers got him released pending trial. Jennifer's voice was tight. He's going to walk into that boardroom and sit across from Victoria and pretend he didn't try to have her killed. And she... A pause. She's terrified, Mr. Webb. She won't admit it, but I can see it. She needs someone there she can trust. Someone who isn't on Sterling's payroll. Someone who has no reason to help her except that it's the right thing to do. Marcus stopped running. Stood there on the empty sidewalk breathing hard, sweat cooling on his skin in the dawn air. I'm a janitor. I don't belong in a boardroom. You're a man who saved her life when you had nothing to gain. You're the only person in that building she knows for certain isn't compromised. Jennifer's voice softened. Please. She won't ask. She's too proud. But I'm asking. Marcus closed his eyes. He'd spent 6 years running from responsibility. From the weight of other people's lives depending on his choices. From the possibility of failing again. What time? 9. Conference room at 20th floor. Wear something other than your uniform. She hung up. Marcus stood there another moment, then turned and ran back to his apartment. He hadn't worn a suit in 6 years. He found it in the back of his closet, still in dry cleaner plastic from the last time the funeral. Sarah's funeral. He'd worn it once and then packed it away, like packing away that entire life. He put it on. It fit looser than he remembered. He'd lost weight. Too much running, not enough eating. The man in the mirror looked like a stranger. Someone professional. Someone who belonged in boardrooms instead of basements. Someone he used to be. He arrived at Chen Industries at 8:45. The receptionist did a double take when he walked past Kelly, who'd seen him cleaning these floors 100 times, but never really looked at him. Now she stared. Mr. Webb? He didn't stop. Went straight to the elevators. Pushed the button for 20. The elevator filled with executives on their way to morning meetings. They glanced at him, didn't recognize him. Went back to their phones. He'd been invisible for 4 years. One suit didn't change that. The 20th floor was executive territory. Thick carpet, actual artwork on the wall's windows overlooking the city. Marcus found conference room A easily. Through the glass walls he could see people already gathering. Board members. Lawyers. Victoria sat at the head of the table. Her arm still in a cast, bruises fading to yellow-green on her face. She looked smaller than she had in the hospital. More fragile. Then her eyes met his through the glass, and something changed. She sat up straighter. The fear in her expression eased slightly. Marcus took a position outside the room where he could see through the glass but stay out of the way. Close enough to intervene if needed. Far enough to not be intrusive. Sophie appeared beside him out of nowhere. She was supposed to be at school, but here she was wearing her uniform backpack still on. You came, she said. I came. Mom didn't think you would. I didn't think I would either. Sophie slipped her hand into his. He looked down at her, this 8-year-old who trusted him for reasons he didn't understand. She smiled up at him. I knew you'd come. You always help people even when you don't want to." Before he could respond, the elevator opened and David Sterling walked out. Marcus had seen Sterling's photo in the investigator's report, but seeing him in person was different. The man was 52, silver hair, perfectly styled, wearing a suit that cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. He had the kind of face that inspired confidence. Strong jaw, clear eyes, the face of someone you'd trust with your retirement fund. The face of someone who'd ordered 2 men to beat a woman nearly to death. Sterling walked straight toward the conference room. He saw Victoria through the glass and smiled. Actually smiled. Like they were old friends meeting for lunch. Marcus felt Sophie's hand tighten on his. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the man who hurt Mom." "I know. Are you going to stop him?" "If I have to." Sterling entered the conference room. Victoria's face went carefully blank, professional. But Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders the way her good hand gripped the table edge. The meeting started. Marcus couldn't hear what was being said, but he could read body language. Victoria presented something on the screen, financial documents probably. Sterling shook his head, made dismissive gestures. His lawyer leaned in, whispered something. The board members looked uncomfortable. Then Sterling stood up, started talking, his gestures becoming more aggressive. Victoria stood too, her face flushed. They were arguing now. Sterling took a step toward her, his posture threatening. Marcus moved. He didn't think about it, didn't weigh the consequences. He just moved. Through the conference room door across the floor, positioning himself between Sterling and Victoria, with the kind of fluid efficiency that came from years of training. "Step back," Marcus said quietly. The room went silent. Everyone stared. Sterling looked him up and down. "Who the hell are you? Someone who knows exactly what you're capable of. Someone who won't let you hurt her again." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm promising you." Marcus's voice was very calm, very controlled. "You take 1 step toward her and I will put you on the ground. Lawyers or no lawyers. Board members or no board members. You don't touch her." Sterling's face flushed red. "Do you know who I am? I'm the CFO of this company. I'm a board member. Security will get here in about 90 seconds. I can do a lot of damage in 90 seconds. Want to find out how much?" "Marcus." Victoria's voice behind him. "It's okay." "No, it's not." He didn't take his eyes off Sterling. "This man tried to have you killed. He's out on bail because he has expensive lawyers. He walked in here thinking he could intimidate you into backing down. He needs to understand that's not happening. Is this true?" An older woman at the table spoke up, Elizabeth Morrison, the board's senior member. "David, did you try to have Victoria killed?" "Of course not. This is absurd. This man is clearly—" Marcus Holloway confessed. Victoria interrupted. "He gave the FBI everything. Phone records, payment records. Your exact instructions when you ordered him to handle the problem." Her voice was steady now, stronger. "You tried to have me murdered to cover up the fact that you've stolen $17 million from this company over 2 years. That's a lie. Then explain the shell companies. Explain the offshore accounts. Explain the fake invoices all bearing your signature." Victoria pulled up more documents on the screen. "I have everything, David. Every transaction, every authorization, every piece of evidence showing you've been systematically stealing from a company my father built. A company he trusted you to help run." Sterling's composure cracked. His face twisted with rage and something else, desperation. He lunged toward Victoria. He didn't make it 3 feet. Marcus intercepted him with clinical precision. One hand caught Sterling's wrist, redirecting the momentum. One foot swept his legs. Sterling went down hard face first onto the conference table. Marcus had him pinned, arm twisted behind his back at an angle that didn't break anything but hurt like hell. "I told you," Marcus said quietly. "You don't touch her." The conference room door burst open. Security rushed in Tommy and 2 others. They stopped when they saw Sterling face down on the table with Marcus holding him immobile. "Mr. Webb?" Tommy sounded confused. What? Mr. Sterling just attempted to assault Ms. Chen. I stopped him. Call the police. Get off me, Sterling thrashed. Marcus applied slightly more pressure. Sterling stopped thrashing. Your bail is about to be revoked, Marcus told him. Attempting to assault the victim of your previous attack while in a public boardroom with witnesses, your lawyers can't fix that. Elizabeth Morrison was already on her phone. Yes, this is Elizabeth Morrison at Chen Industries. We need police at 4800 Riverside Boulevard, 20th floor. David Sterling just violated his bail conditions by attempting to assault Victoria Chen. She paused. Yes, I'm a witness. The entire board is. Marcus held Sterling until the police arrived. It took 4 minutes. Detective Morrison came with them, took one look at the scene, and shook his head. Mr. Sterling, you just made my job a lot easier. They cuffed Sterling and read him his rights. As they led him away, he looked back at Victoria with pure hatred. You'll never survive this company without me. You're weak. Your father would be ashamed. My father would be ashamed of you, Victoria said quietly. You were his friend. He trusted you, and you stole from him. You betrayed him. Then you tried to kill his daughter. Her voice didn't waver. If there's any justice in this world, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison thinking about that. They took him away. The conference room remained silent for a long moment. Then Elizabeth Morrison spoke. Well, that was dramatic. She looked at Marcus. Who are you exactly? Marcus Webb. I work here. Doing what? Victoria answered. He's the man who saved my life. He's also a decorated Navy surgeon who performed battlefield medicine in a parking garage because my daughter knew he was the only person who could help. Elizabeth's eyebrows climbed. A surgeon working as a janitor. It's complicated, Marcus said. I imagine it is. Elizabeth turned to Victoria. We need to vote on interim CFO. I nominate myself until we can find someone not actively embezzling from us. All in favor. The vote was unanimous. Good. Now, about the embezzlement, Victoria. I assume you have copies of all documentation. 3 sets. FBI has 1. My lawyers have 1. I have 1. Excellent. We'll need to... Excuse me. Marcus headed for the door. You don't need me anymore. Wait. Victoria stood up. Marcus, please, wait. He stopped but didn't turn around. I need to talk to you, after this. Please don't disappear again. He didn't promise anything, just left. Sophie followed him out. That was really cool, the way you stopped him. Sophie, you're supposed to be at school. Mrs. Rodriguez brought me. She's downstairs. I wanted to make sure Mom was okay. She looked up at him. You protected her. Anyone would have. No. Most people would have called security. You moved before anyone else even realized what was happening. Sophie's voice was matter-of-fact. You're like a superhero except real. I'm not a hero. I'm just... He stopped. What was he? Not a janitor. Not really. Not a doctor anymore either. Somewhere in between. Stuck. You saved my mom twice now. That makes you a hero. Sophie hugged him suddenly, fiercely. Thank you. Marcus stood there awkwardly until she let go. Then she ran back toward the elevator's backpack, bouncing. He found Victoria waiting in her office an hour later. She was sitting behind her desk, looking exhausted and in pain, but also relieved. The fear that had been in her eyes during the meeting was gone. Thank you, she said, for coming, for... She gestured vaguely. For being there. You handled it. You didn't need me. I did need you. I needed to know someone was there who I could trust completely. Someone who wasn't compromised. Victoria paused. Why did you come? Jennifer said you were reluctant. I was. I am. Marcus moved to the window, looking out at the city. I spent 6 years avoiding responsibility. Avoiding situations where people depend on me. Because every time someone depends on me, I remember everyone I failed. You didn't fail me. You saved me. This time. What about next time? What if next time I'm too slow or I make the wrong call or... He stopped. What if I fail again and someone dies because I wasn't good enough? Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up, moved to stand beside him at the window. My father had a saying. He said fear of failure is just fear of trying, and the only way to guarantee failure is to never try at all. She looked at him. You're afraid. I get it. You lost someone you loved and you think it's your fault. You think you don't deserve to practice medicine anymore. But Marcus... Her voice was gentle. You're still doing it. Teaching kids CPR. Carrying that trauma kit everywhere. Saving me. You're still a doctor. You're just punishing yourself by pretending you're not. What do you want from me? I want to start something. A community health center. Free medical care for people who can't afford it. Trauma response training. Mental health support. Victoria's words came faster now, energized. This city has thousands of people falling through the cracks. Working poor who can't afford insurance. Homeless folks with nowhere to go. Veterans struggling with PTSD. Kids who need someone to teach them basic life-saving skills. There are already free clinics. Not enough. Not with the kind of comprehensive care I'm talking about. Not with the dignity and respect people deserve. She turned to face him fully. I want to build something my father would have been proud of. Something that serves the community, not just shareholders. And I want you to run it. Marcus shook his head. I can't. Why not? Because I let my medical license lapse. Because I haven't practiced in 6 years. Because you're afraid. Victoria's voice was firm. But fear isn't a good enough reason to waste a gift. You're brilliant. You're skilled. You care about people even when you pretend not to. And you're hiding all of that because of guilt that isn't even rational. It's not your decision whether my guilt is rational. You're right, it's not. But it is my decision who I ask to run this health center, and I'm asking you. She paused. Think about it. That's all I'm asking. Just think about it. Marcus left without answering. He went back to his apartment, changed into his uniform, showed up for his shift at Chen Industries that night like he had for 4 years. He mopped floors. He emptied trash. He cleaned bathrooms. He did all the invisible work that kept the building running while everyone else went home. But it felt different now. People nodded at him, said hello. Tommy called him sir instead of just hey. Kelly, the receptionist, asked how he was doing. They saw him now. After 4 years of being invisible, he was suddenly visible. And he hated it. He left at dawn and went to St. Anthony's Community Center for his regular class. The kids were waiting his usual group, plus a few new faces. Word was spreading. More kids wanted to learn. He taught them about shock, how to recognize it, how to treat it. He showed them how to keep someone warm, how to elevate their legs, how to monitor their breathing and pulse. He made them practice on each other until they could do it without thinking. Why do we need to know this? One of the new kids asked. He was maybe 15, skinny, defensive. We're not doctors. Because someday you might be the only person who can help. Someday someone you care about might be dying, and you'll be the only one there. And in that moment, this knowledge, Marcus tapped his head, is the difference between helpless and helpful, between watching them die and saving their life. The kid nodded slowly, paid attention after that. After class, Marcus packed up his supplies. A woman was waiting by the door, late 50s, gray hair pulled back, wearing scrubs. She had the look of someone who'd spent 40 years working in hospitals. Dr. Webb. He froze. Nobody had called him that in 6 years. I'm Nancy Martinez. I'm a nurse practitioner at County General. I heard about what you did saving Victoria Chen. And I heard you teach classes here. She paused. We could use someone like you at the hospital. Trauma department is always understaffed. Pay's not great, but I'm not a doctor anymore. Your medical license lapsed. That's not the same as not being a doctor. Nancy's voice was kind but firm. Skills like yours don't disappear, and people need them. County General treats the population you care about: the working poor, the uninsured, the folks with nowhere else to go. We could use your help. I can't. Why not? Because I quit. I made that choice 6 years ago and I can't. He stopped. I can't go back. Can't or won't? Marcus didn't answer. Nancy pulled out a business card. If you change your mind, we need good people. We especially need people who remember why they became doctors in the first place, to help people who need it. She left the card on the table and walked out. Marcus stared at it for a long time. Then he picked it up and put it in his pocket. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay in his narrow bed in his basement apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. About Sarah. About the 6 years he'd spent running. About Victoria and Sophie. About those kids at the community center hanging on every word, because somebody finally cared enough to teach them something that mattered. About the fact that he was still carrying his trauma kit everywhere, even though he'd promised himself he'd never practice medicine again. At 3 in the morning, he got up, pulled out the photograph he kept face down on his dresser. Sarah's photo. He'd taken it on their last leave together 2 months before she died. She was laughing at something he'd said, her hair blowing in the wind, her nurse's uniform visible under her jacket. She looked happy. She looked alive. He'd kept it face down for 6 years because he couldn't stand to look at her face and remember that she was gone. That he'd survived and she hadn't. That he got to keep living while she was buried in Arlington. But looking at it now, he didn't see accusation in her expression. He saw joy. He saw the woman who'd fallen in love with him because he wanted to help people. Who'd married him because they shared a calling. Who'd died doing exactly what she believed in, bringing medical care to people who desperately needed it. What would she say if she could see him now mopping floors? Hiding from his training. Wasting his skills because he was too afraid to fail again. She'd be furious. The thought made him laugh, a short, sharp sound in the darkness. Sarah had never been a patient with self-pity, hers or anyone else's. She would have told him to stop wallowing and get back to work. Told him people needed him and he didn't have the luxury of falling apart. Told him that the best way to honor her memory was to keep doing what they'd both believed in. He sat there holding her photo until dawn. Then he got up, showered, made coffee, and made a phone call. Victoria answered on the second ring. Marcus, tell me about this health center. There was a pause. Then her voice came back, careful, hopeful. What do you want to know? Everything. Location, funding, staffing plan, patient population, services offered. Everything. Does this mean you're considering it? It means I'm listening, that's all. Just listening. But they both knew it meant more than that. Victoria talked for an hour. She'd been planning this for months, apparently. Long before the attack, before Marcus saved her life. She'd watched her father's company grow wealthy while the community around them struggled. She'd wanted to do something meaningful. Something that mattered beyond quarterly profits and shareholder returns. The health center would be in the neighborhood where Marcus taught his classes. The building was already purchased, an old elementary school being converted. 3 floors. Exam rooms, treatment rooms, mental health counseling offices, a classroom for community education. Everything designed to feel welcoming, not institutional. I want people to feel safe coming here, Victoria said. Not judged, not like they're charity cases, just human, deserving of care. What about staffing? That's where I need you. I can hire nurses, administrators, support staff, but I need someone who understands trauma care. Someone who can train staff, develop protocols, build a program from the ground up. Someone who actually cares about the mission, not just a paycheck. My license is expired. So, renew it. Take the recertification exams. You spent 6 years as a combat surgeon in the world's worst conditions. You really think you'll have trouble passing some tests? Marcus was quiet. I'm not asking you to have all the answers right now. Victoria continued. I'm asking you to think about it. Visit the site. Look at the plans. See if maybe this is something worth trying. And if I fail, if I can't do this anymore, then at least you tried, and that's better than spending the rest of your life wondering what if. Marcus thought about Sarah's photo, about her smile, about the woman who'd never let fear stop her from helping people who needed it. Okay, he said quietly. I'll look at it. Really? Really. But I'm not promising anything beyond that. That's enough. For now, that's enough. Victoria's relief was audible. Can you meet me there tomorrow? 2 o'clock. I'll be there. He hung up and sat there for a long moment. Then he pulled out Nancy Martinez's card, called the number. County General ER, this is Nancy. It's Marcus Webb. You said your trauma department needed help. Dr. Webb, yes we do. I need to renew my medical license first. But if you still need someone in 3 months. He paused. I might be available. Nancy was quiet for a moment. Then, we'll be here. Take the time you need, but Marcus, welcome back. He wasn't back yet, not really. But maybe he was starting to find his way there. That afternoon he met Victoria at the old school building. Sophie came too because apparently Sophie came everywhere now. She grabbed his hand the moment she saw him. You're going to help Mom make the hospital. She was bouncing with excitement. You're going to save lots of people. Maybe. We'll see. You will. I know you will. The building was dusty and empty, but Victoria walked him through it like it was already finished, pointing out where exam rooms would go, where the mental health offices would be, where they'd set up the community education classroom. Her enthusiasm was infectious. She had it all planned out, everything from paint colors to patient intake protocols. The goal is dignity, she explained. Every person who walks through that door gets treated with respect. No judgment, no bureaucracy, just care. Marcus found himself nodding, asking questions, suggesting modifications based on trauma care best practices. Before he knew it, 2 hours had passed, and he was sketching out a triage system on Victoria's tablet. Sophie watched them grinning. You're already doing it. Doing what? Being a doctor again. Look, you're happy. Marcus stopped, realized she was right. For the first time in 6 years, he felt something other than guilt and emptiness. He felt engaged, purposeful. Terrified, but purposeful. So, Victoria looked at him. What do you think? Marcus looked around the empty building, thought about what it could become, thought about the people it could help, thought about Sarah and what she would say if she could see this. I think, he paused, I think maybe I'm willing to try. Victoria's smile was like sunrise. Really? Really? But I need time. I need to recertify to make sure I can actually do this without falling apart. Take whatever time you need. We're 6 months from opening anyway. Plenty of time. Sophie threw her arms around both of them, somehow managing to hug them simultaneously. This is the best day ever. Marcus caught Victoria's eye over Sophie's head. She was crying. Happy tears this time, not fear or pain. Just happiness. And for the first time in 6 years, Marcus felt like maybe, just maybe, he deserved to be happy too. The recertification exam was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in April, 8 months after Marcus had saved Victoria's life. He'd spent those 8 months studying like he was back in medical school, 12-hour days, memorizing protocols that had changed since he'd last practiced, learning new procedures, reviewing case studies until his eyes burned. At night, he still worked maintenance at Chen Industries because the routine kept him grounded, kept him from thinking too hard about what he was attempting. He arrived at the testing center at 7:30 for an 8 o'clock exam. The waiting room was full of younger doctors' residents, probably taking their boards. They looked nervous but excited. The kind of nervous that came from anticipation, not dread. Marcus felt different. He felt like a man walking back into a burning building. The exam took 6 hours. multiple-choice clinical scenarios, diagnosis, and treatment protocols. Questions that would have been simple 8 years ago, but now required him to fight through layers of doubt. What if he chose wrong? What if his knowledge was outdated? What if he'd forgotten something critical? He finished with 20 minutes to spare. Sat there staring at the submit button on the computer screen. Once he clicked it, there was no going back. He'd either pass and have to follow through with everything he'd committed to, or he'd fail and prove what he'd suspected all along, that he wasn't good enough anymore. That 6 years of running had broken something essential. He thought about Sarah, about Victoria, about Sophie and those kids at the community center who looked at him like he had answers. He clicked submit. Results would come in 2 weeks. Victoria found him that night in the basement of Chen Industries, rewiring an electrical panel that didn't really need rewiring. She'd learned over the past 8 months that when Marcus needed to think, he found physical work to occupy his hands. How'd it go? Don't know yet. 2 weeks for results. You'll pass. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Victoria leaned against the wall watching him work. Her arm was out of the cast, now still weak, but functional. The bruises had faded months ago, but Marcus still saw them sometimes when he looked at her. Still remembered how close she'd come to dying. You've been studying 16 hours a day for 8 months. You know this material better than half the doctors currently practicing. Knowing material and being able to practice are different things. Marcus? She waited until he looked at her. You're going to pass, and then you're going to help me open this health center, and it's going to be amazing. You need to start believing that. I'm trying. Try harder. But her voice was gentle. She understood what this cost him. They'd spent enough time together over the past months planning the center, having dinner with Sophie, talking late into the night about everything and nothing that she could read his silences now. Could tell when he was spiraling. Come have dinner with us. Sophie made you something. Sophie's 8. She doesn't cook. She made you a card. With glitter. So much glitter. My entire kitchen table is now permanently sparkly. Victoria smiled. Come see it. Take a break from hiding in the basement. Marcus set down his tools, followed her up. Sophie's card said, You're going to be a doctor again. In crayon letters, surrounded by stickers of stethoscopes and hearts. The glitter situation was indeed out of control. You like it? Sophie asked anxiously. It's the best card I've ever gotten. Really? Really? And it was true. Nobody had made him anything since Sarah died. The simple act of an 8-year-old spending time cutting and gluing and covering everything in glitter, specifically for him, it meant more than she could possibly know. Dinner was spaghetti. Sophie talked non-stop about school and her friends, and a boy named Tyler, who was annoying but also maybe cute. Victoria listened and asked questions and looked at Marcus across the table with an expression he was starting to recognize. Something warm. Something that made him feel like maybe he belonged here. It terrified him. After dinner, Sophie fell asleep on the couch watching a movie. Marcus helped Victoria carry her to bed. They stood in the doorway of Sophie's room, watching her sleep, this kid who'd run straight to him when her world was falling apart. Who trusted him completely for reasons he still didn't fully understand. She loves you, Victoria said quietly. You know that, right? I know. It doesn't scare you. It terrifies me. What if I let her down? What if something happens and I can't help and she... He stopped. Everyone I love ends up hurt. That's not true. Sarah died. I couldn't save her. That wasn't your fault. You were in surgery. There was nothing you could have done. Doesn't matter. She's still dead, and I'm still alive. And I don't... His voice broke. I don't know if I can survive losing someone again, especially not Sophie. Or you. Victoria turned to look at him. In the dim light from Sophie's nightlight, her face was serious. Marcus, you can't protect people by keeping them at a distance. That's not protection. That's just loneliness. It's safer. For who? Not for Sophie. She needs you in her life. Not as the janitor who saves people and disappears. As someone permanent. Someone she can count on. Victoria paused. Not for me either. These past 8 months, you've become important to us. Both of us. And I think we've become important to you too. Even if you're too scared to admit it. Marcus couldn't meet her eyes. I don't know how to do this. How to let people in again. How to be responsible for... He gestured helplessly. For everything. You do it one day at a time. One choice at a time. You already started. You agreed to run the health center. You're taking the recertification exam. You're having dinner with us 3 nights a week. You're letting Sophie hug you without looking like you want to run away. Victoria's voice was soft. You're already doing it, Marcus. You're just too afraid to call it what it is. What is it? Living. Actually living. Not just existing. They stood there in silence. Finally, Marcus said, I should go. You could stay. Guest room's empty. Has been since you fixed the heating last month. Victoria. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm just saying you don't have to be alone every night. You don't have to go back to that apartment and sit in the dark thinking about everything you've lost. She met his eyes. You could stay here, with people who care about you. And maybe that would be okay. Marcus wanted to say yes. Wanted it so badly it hurt. But 6 years of isolation didn't disappear overnight. I need time. I know. Take all the time you need. But Marcus... She touched his hand. Just briefly. Stop punishing yourself. You're allowed to be happy. Sarah would want you to be happy. He left before he could change his mind. Walked back to his apartment through streets that felt emptier than usual. Sat in his living room that contained almost nothing because he'd never bothered to make it a home. Looked at Sarah's photo face up now where he could see it every day. I don't know what I'm doing, he told her picture. I don't know if I can do this. The health center, Victoria, Sophie, all of it. What if I fail them the way I failed you? Sarah's photographed smile offered no answers. But he could imagine what she'd say. She'd tell him to stop being dramatic. Tell him failure was trying nothing out of fear. Tell him to get his act together and help people because that's what he was good at. Tell him she loved him and always would, but that didn't mean he had to stop living. He fell asleep on the couch, still looking at her photo. The test results came back on a Thursday. Marcus was teaching his community center class when his phone buzzed. He ignored it until class ended. Then he checked. One email. Subject line: medical license recertification results. He stared at it for 5 full minutes before opening it. Congratulations, Dr. Webb. You have successfully passed all components of the medical license recertification examination. Your license will be reinstated pending completion of required continuing education credits and updated background checks. Welcome back to the practice of medicine. He read it 3 times, then sat down heavily on a folding chair. He'd passed. He was a doctor again. Officially. Legally. His phone rang immediately. Victoria. Did you get your results? How did you know they came today? Because I've been obsessively checking the recertification board's website every hour for the past week. So, did you pass? I passed. Victoria's scream of joy was so loud, he had to hold the phone away from his ear. In the background, he heard Sophie shrieking, "He passed! Mr. Marcus passed!" "We're coming over," Victoria announced. "We're celebrating. Don't move." They arrived 20 minutes later with a grocery bag full of takeout and a cake that said, "Dr. Marcus," in blue frosting. Sophie launched herself at him the moment she saw him. "I knew you'd pass. I told everyone at school my friend Mr. Marcus was becoming a doctor again, and they didn't believe me, but I knew it." They ate Chinese food, sitting on the floor of the community center, because there was nowhere else to sit. Sophie chattered endlessly about how Marcus was going to save hundreds of people and be the best doctor ever. Victoria kept looking at him with this expression, pride mixed with something deeper, something that made his chest tight. "So what happens now?" Victoria asked. "Background checks, continuing education credits. That'll take maybe 6 weeks. Then I'm officially licensed to practice. The health center opens in 3 months. That gives you time to hire staff, set up protocols, train everyone." Victoria paused. "This is really happening." "Yeah, I guess it is." "Are you okay?" Marcus thought about it. Was he okay? He was terrified. He was second-guessing everything. He kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong, for proof that he'd been right to hide for 6 years. But underneath all that fear, there was something else. Something he hadn't felt in so long he'd almost forgotten what it was. Purpose. "I'm okay," he said. "I think I'm actually okay." Sophie fell asleep against his shoulder halfway through dinner. Marcus looked down at her, this kid who trusted him completely, who'd run to him when her mother was dying, who made him glitter cards and told everyone he was her hero. Victoria watched them both. She's never had a father figure. Her dad left when she was 3, calls maybe twice a year. She's been searching for that connection ever since. Her voice was quiet. "You've given her something she's needed for a long time. Stability. Someone reliable who shows up and doesn't leave." "I'm not her father." "No, but you could be something like it, if you wanted to be." Marcus stroked Sophie's hair gently, careful not to wake her. "What do you want, Victoria, from me? From this?" He gestured between them. "Because I need to know what I'm walking into." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I want someone who sees me. Not the CEO, not the single mother, not the woman who almost died. Just me. Someone I can trust. Someone who makes me feel less alone." She met his eyes. "I want what we've been building for 8 months. Dinners together. Late-night conversations. Someone who understands grief and survival and trying to be better than your worst moments." She paused. "I want you, Marcus. However you're willing to show up. That's what I want." He should say something. Should tell her he wanted that too, that these 8 months had changed him, that she and Sophie had become the center of his world, without him quite realizing when it happened. But the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he said, "I need to take this slow. I know. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to pull away when things get intense. I'm going to, I know, do it anyway." Victoria smiled. "We've got time. We're not going anywhere." The health center construction finished 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Marcus spent every day there setting up exam rooms, organizing supply closets, establishing protocols. Victoria hired staff, 2 other doctors, 5 nurses, 3 medical assistants, 2 mental health counselors, administrative support. Marcus interviewed every single one personally. "Tell me why you want to work here," he asked each candidate. The answers varied, but the ones he hired all said some version of the same thing. Because people deserve care, regardless of ability to pay. Because medicine should be about healing, not profit. Because someone needs to serve the community everyone else forgets. They were idealists, just like he'd been once, just like Sarah had been. He hired a nurse named Patricia, who'd spent 20 years at County General's Trauma Center. She took one look at Marcus and said, "You're military, aren't you? I can always tell. You've got that look like you've seen things you wish you could forget. Navy Medical Corps, 3 tours. Thank you for your service. Also thank you for this." She gestured at the health center. "Places like this are why I became a nurse, so count me in." He hired a young doctor fresh out of residency named David Chen. No relation to Victoria, who said he'd gone into medicine because his mother died of treatable cancer after being turned away from hospitals for lack of insurance. "I don't want anyone else to lose their mother like I did," David said quietly. If this place can prevent even one death like hers, it's worth it. Marcus understood that motivation intimately. Training took 3 weeks. Marcus ran them through trauma protocols, triage systems, how to handle mass casualty events, how to treat patients with dignity when they were scared and desperate. He taught them everything the Navy had taught him about saving lives with limited resources under impossible conditions. Patricia watched him work and afterwards said, "You're a good teacher. Patient. Clear. You don't make people feel stupid for not knowing something." She paused. "But you're still afraid. I can see it. Every time you demonstrate a procedure, there's this moment where you hesitate, like you're waiting for something to go wrong." "I am waiting for something to go wrong." "Why?" "Because it always does. Someone always dies. Someone always needs more than I can give. And He stopped. "I can't survive failing again." "Then don't fail. Simple as that." "It's not that simple." "Sure it is. You prepare, you train, you do the work, then you trust yourself to handle whatever comes." Patricia's voice was firm. "Dr. Webb, I've worked trauma for 20 years. I've seen hundreds of doctors come through. You know what separates the good ones from the ones who burn out. The good ones accept that they can't save everyone. They do their absolute best, and they accept that sometimes best isn't enough. The ones who burn out are the ones who think they're supposed to be perfect, who think one failure erases 100 successes." She looked at him steadily. "Don't be the second kind. We need you to be the first kind." The Marcus Webb Community Health Center opened on a Saturday in late October. Perfect weather. Clear sky, crisp air, the kind of fall day that felt like possibility. The neighborhood turned out in force. Families who'd never had reliable health care, elderly folks who'd been rationing medications, veterans who'd been struggling with PTSD alone, young people who'd had nowhere to turn when they were sick or hurt. Victoria stood at the entrance with Sophie beside her. She'd arranged for food trucks, music face painting for kids. Made it a celebration instead of just an opening. Made people feel welcome instead of like charity cases. Marcus hung back watching. He was supposed to give a speech, but the words kept sticking. What was he supposed to say? That he hoped this worked, that he was terrified of letting them down, that he'd spent 6 years running from this exact moment. Sophie found him hiding near the medical supply room. "You're supposed to be out there." "I know." "Are you scared?" Marcus looked down at her. At 8 years old, she was too perceptive for her own good. "Yeah, I'm scared." "Why?" "Because what if I'm not good enough? What if people come here needing help and I can't?" He stopped. "What if I fail them?" Sophie took his hand. "You won't. You didn't fail Mom. You didn't fail me. You won't fail them either." She said it with such absolute certainty, like it was simple fact. "You're the best person I know, Mr. Marcus. You just need to believe it." "When did you get so wise?" "I'm 8. I've been alive a long time." She tugged his hand. "Come on. Mom's about to start the speech and she wants you there." Victoria's speech was simple. She talked about community, about her father's belief that business should serve people, about the gap between those who had access to health care and those who didn't. She talked about dignity and respect and the fundamental truth that everyone deserved care regardless of their ability to pay. Then she introduced Marcus. Dr. Marcus Webb is a decorated Navy surgeon who spent 6 years serving in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. He's saved countless lives under impossible conditions. And now he's here to serve this community, to make sure everyone who walks through these doors gets the care they deserve. He's the reason this center exists. He's the heart of everything we're trying to build here. The crowd applauded. Marcus stood there feeling exposed and terrified and more alive than he'd felt in years. He didn't give a speech. Couldn't find the words. Instead, he just said, "We're here to help. Whatever you need. That's why we're here." It was enough. They saw 67 patients that first day. Everything from basic checkups to a kid with a broken arm to an elderly man having a minor heart attack. Marcus worked steadily through all of it, his hands remembering every procedure, his mind calculating and diagnosing and treating like he'd never stopped. Patricia worked beside him, anticipating what he needed before he asked, the kind of seamless partnership that came from mutual respect and shared purpose. The elderly man with the heart attack, Mr. Rodriguez, 73 years old, looked up at Marcus while they were loading him into the ambulance to County General and said, "Thank you. I thought I was going to die. I was too scared to call 911 because I can't afford the ambulance bill. But you saved my life." "That's what we're here for," Marcus told him. "Don't ever be too scared to ask for help. Not here, not ever." After the ambulance left, Victoria found Marcus sitting on the front steps, exhausted and still vibrating with adrenaline. She sat beside him. 67 patients, first day. "Yeah. You saved at least 3 lives today. The heart attack. That kid with the allergic reaction. The woman with the internal bleeding." Victoria's voice was quiet. "You're doing it, Marcus. Everything you were afraid you couldn't do anymore, you're doing it." I almost froze on the heart attack. For about 3 seconds, I couldn't remember the protocol. I just blanked. But you didn't freeze. You remembered. You acted. He's alive because of you. Marcus was quiet. Then he said, "Sarah would have loved this. The whole concept, free healthcare, treating people with dignity, serving the community. She always said that's what medicine was supposed to be about. Not profit margins or insurance companies. Just helping people who need it. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you. You're stubborn like she was. Determined." Marcus smiled slightly. "She never let me give up on anything. Even when I wanted to quit medical school because the workload was crushing me, she told me I didn't have that luxury. Told me people needed doctors like me, doctors who cared." His voice dropped. "I quit anyway, after she died. Gave up for 6 years. She'd be disappointed." "No, she wouldn't. She'd understand." Victoria touched his hand. "And she'd be proud that you found your way back. That you built this. That you're helping people again." "How do you know?" "Because I know you loved her. And people who love like that, they don't judge. They support. They want the best for you, even when you can't see it yourself." Victoria paused. "The way I want the best for you. The way Sophie does." Marcus turned to look at her. Really look at her. This woman who'd come into his life through violence and trauma, but stayed because of something else. Something deeper. He'd been so focused on his own guilt and fear that he'd almost missed what was happening between them. "Victoria." Sophie burst through the doors. "Mom, Dr. Marcus. There's a lady here who wants to volunteer. She says she's a retired nurse and she lives 3 blocks away. And can she help?" "Tell her yes," Marcus and Victoria said simultaneously. Sophie grinned and ran back inside. "She's going to keep interrupting every time we try to have a serious conversation," Victoria observed. "Probably. So maybe we should just accept that this," she gestured between them, "is going to happen slowly, in stolen moments, between work and Sophie and everything else. I can work with slow. Good. Because slow is all I've got right now too." Victoria stood up, held out her hand. "Come on, Dr. Webb. We've got a health center to run, people to help, lives to save." Marcus took her hand, let her pull him up. For the first time in 6 years, he felt ready. The call came at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday in March, 6 months after the health center opened. Marcus was asleep in the guest room at Victoria's house. He'd been staying there more nights than not lately, though neither of them had officially acknowledged what that meant. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He answered before it could wake Sophie. "Dr. Webb?" "Marcus, it's Patricia. We've got a situation. Building collapse on Fletcher Street. At least 20 casualties. County General is overwhelmed. They're asking if we can take overflow." Marcus was already out of bed pulling on clothes. "How many can we handle?" "Maybe 10 if we clear out the waiting room and use every available space. But Marcus, most of these are going to be serious trauma. Crush injuries, internal bleeding, possible spinal damage. This isn't routine care. I know. I'm on my way. Start prepping. Call everyone in. He hung up and found Victoria standing in the doorway, her hair sleep-mussed, wearing one of his old Navy t-shirts. What's wrong? Building collapse. Multiple casualties. I need to go. I'll drive you. Victoria, you don't have to. Sophie's asleep. My neighbor can watch her. You're about to walk into a mass casualty situation and you're shaking. She said it gently but firmly. Let me drive you. He was shaking. He hadn't even noticed. They made it to the health center in 8 minutes. The ambulance bay was already chaotic, paramedics unloading patients, people crying. Patricia directing traffic with the calm authority of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. She saw Marcus and relief flooded her face. Thank God. We've got 12 incoming. First wave is critical chest trauma, suspected internal bleeding, one with possible spinal injury. County General took the worst cases, but these are still serious. Marcus's mind shifted. He'd done this before. Not here, not in a community health center with limited resources, but in forward operating bases with even less. He knew how to do this. Triage by color. Red tags go to exam rooms 1 and 2. Those are our critical. Yellow tags to 3 and 4, serious but stable. Green tags to the waiting room, we'll get to them when we can. Anyone coding goes straight to room 1, that's where I'll be. Patricia, you're with me. David, you take room 2. Coordinate with County General. We need to know their capacity for transfers. Everyone moved. The training kicked in. The protocols they'd practiced became real. The first patient was a woman in her 30s, trapped under debris for 40 minutes before extraction. Crush syndrome. Marcus knew before he even examined her. When muscle tissue is compressed that long, it releases toxins. When the pressure is released, those toxins flood the bloodstream. Kidney failure, cardiac arrest, death. Get me IV fluid, sodium bicarbonate, calcium gluconate, now. His hands moved automatically, establishing lines, checking vitals, calculating drug dosages. Patricia, call County General. Tell them we need dialysis standing by for transfer. She's going into renal failure. On it. The woman's eyes were open, terrified. Am I going to die? Marcus looked at her. He could lie, make it easier, but he'd learned a long time ago that people deserved truth. Not if I can help it. But you're seriously injured. Your kidneys are shutting down from the trauma. We're going to stabilize you here, then transfer you to County General, where they can treat you properly. Do you understand? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. My daughter. She was with me. Did they find her? I don't know. But I promise we're going to take care of you, so you can find out. He squeezed her hand once. Stay with me. Keep fighting. He worked for 90 minutes straight on her, stabilizing vitals, managing the cascade of complications that came with crush syndrome, fighting to keep her alive long enough for transfer. Twice her heart rhythm went unstable. Twice he corrected it. Patricia worked beside him with the seamless efficiency of someone who trusted his judgment completely. Finally, the ambulance arrived from County General. They loaded the woman, Mrs. Anderson, he'd learned mother of 2, and took her to the ICU. Marcus watched the ambulance pull away his scrubs, soaked with sweat and blood. Room 2 needs you, Patricia said quietly. Chest trauma. David's got him stable but wants your assessment. Marcus moved to room 2, then room 3, then back to room 1 for another critical patient. He worked through the night, moving from crisis to crisis, making split-second decisions about who needed immediate intervention and who could wait, saving everyone he could. At 7 in the morning, the last patient was transferred or treated. 12 people. 11 survived. 1, a man in his 60s with catastrophic internal injuries, died in room 2, despite everything David and Marcus tried. Marcus stood over the man's body, hands still gloved, still covered in blood that hadn't been enough. That had never been enough. We did everything we could, David said quietly. He was 28, still young enough to believe that effort should equal results. His injuries were too severe. He was probably dying before the ambulance even brought him here. I know. Then why do you look like you failed? Because he had failed. One person dead meant he'd failed. Never mind the 11 who lived. Never mind the woman with crush syndrome who was alive in County General's ICU right now because he'd remembered protocols from a decade ago. Never mind any of it. One person died on his watch, and that was failure. Patricia appeared in the doorway. Dr. Webb, the families are asking about their loved ones. You need to come talk to them. Marcus stripped off his gloves, threw them in the biohazard bin, walked out to the waiting room, where 12 families were waiting for news about whether their mothers, fathers, daughters, sons were alive or dead. He gave them the news one by one. 11 families got to hear their loved ones survived, were injured, would need recovery time, but were alive. They cried with relief. Thanked him. One woman, Mrs. Anderson's sister, hugged him so hard he couldn't breathe. The 12th family, an elderly woman and 2 adult sons, got different news. Their father was dead. Marcus told them as gently as he could. Explained that the injuries were catastrophic, that they'd done everything possible, that he was sorry. So incredibly sorry. The woman looked at him with hollow eyes. Did he suffer? No, he was unconscious. He didn't feel pain. It was a lie. But sometimes lies were kinder than truth. After the families left, Marcus walked outside. Dawn had broken clear skybirds, singing the city, waking up to another day. Like nothing had happened. Like a man hadn't died 20 feet away while Marcus tried desperately to save him. Victoria was sitting on the front steps. She'd been there all night, apparently, coordinating with families, managing the chaos, keeping everyone calm. She looked up when he came out. How are you? 11 out of 12. That's good. That's... His voice cracked. One of them died. I know. I was here when you told the family. Victoria stood up, moved toward him. Marcus, I should have done more. Should have worked faster, should have... You saved 11 people last night. 11 people who would have died without you. One person dying doesn't erase that. Doesn't it? Because it feels like it does. It feels like 6 years ago all over again. Like no matter how hard I try, no matter what I do, people still die and I'm still standing here covered in their blood wondering what I could have done differently. Victoria stepped closer. Put her hands on his face, made him look at her. You're not God. You can't save everyone. You can only do your best. And last night your best saved 11 lives. That matters, Marcus. That counts. What about the one who died? He matters too. His death is tragic and sad and his family is going to grieve. But you didn't fail him. You tried everything you could. Sometimes that's not enough, and it's not your fault. Marcus closed his eyes. Felt tears he'd been holding back for hours finally break through. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Losing people. Watching them die. I thought I was ready, but You're human. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to hurt. Victoria pulled him close. But you can't quit, because one person died. Those 11 people need you. This community needs you. And Her voice broke. I need you, so please don't run again. He held on to her like she was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting. I'm so tired. I know. Come home. Sleep. We'll figure out the rest later. Home. She'd said home. Not her house, not the guest room. Home. Something in his chest loosened slightly. They drove back in silence. Sophie was awake, eating cereal at the kitchen table. She took one look at Marcus, and her face crumpled. Are you okay? I'm okay, kiddo. You don't look okay. You look sad. She set down her spoon. Did someone die? Marcus looked at Victoria, who nodded slightly. Sophie deserved honesty. Yeah, someone died. A man. I tried to save him, but his injuries were too bad. Sophie got up and hugged him, just wrapped her arms around his waist and held on. I'm sorry. Me too. But you saved other people, right? That's what you do. You save people. I saved 11 people. But that one isn't your fault. Sophie pulled back, looking up at him with those two wise 8-year-old eyes. You can't save everyone, Mr. Marcus. That's what you told me when my fish died. Remember? You said sometimes things die and it's not anyone's fault. It's just sad. He'd forgotten that conversation. 3 months ago, Sophie's goldfish had died and she'd been devastated. He'd explained death as gently as he could. Apparently, she'd been listening better than he realized. You're right. It's just sad. But you saved 11 people. That's amazing. She hugged him again. You're my hero, even when you're sad. Marcus carried that with him through the rest of the day, through the shower where he scrubbed blood from under his fingernails, through the few hours of sleep he managed, through the nightmares of Sarah dying of the man from last night, dying of everyone dying while he stood helpless. He woke to find Sophie sitting on the edge of the bed coloring. You were having a bad dream. Mom said to sit with you until you woke up. Thanks, kiddo. Do you want to see what I drew? It was a picture of the health center, with stick figures going in and coming out smiling. In the center, a figure in a white coat with Dr. Marcus written above it. Around him, words in crayon: hero, lifesaver, best doctor. I'm making it for the health center wall, so everyone knows you're the best. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Sophie, Mom says you're sad because you think you failed, but you didn't. You're the best person I know. You save people. That's what you do. She went back to coloring matter of fact. So stop being sad. We need you. She was right. They needed him. And maybe that was enough reason to keep going. 3 weeks later, Mrs. Anderson came back to the health center. She was in a wheelchair, still recovering but alive. She brought her daughter, the girl who'd been with her during the collapse. The daughter had a broken arm, but was otherwise fine. Dr. Webb. Mrs. Anderson's voice was stronger than it had been that night. I wanted to thank you. They told me at County General that if you hadn't stabilized me, if you hadn't known exactly what to do for crush syndrome, I would have died. My kidneys failed, but they got me on dialysis in time because you called ahead. You saved my life. I was just doing my job. Your job is a miracle for people like me, people who can't afford County General, people who would have died because we don't have insurance or money or access. She took his hand. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this place. Thank you for giving people like me a chance. After she left, Marcus stood in the hallway, feeling something shift. 11 people saved. 11 families still intact. 11 chances at continued life because he'd been there, because he'd tried, because he hadn't run. The man who died was still dead. That grief was real, but so was this. The survivors, the gratitude, the difference he was making. Maybe Patricia was right. Maybe he couldn't be perfect. Maybe he just had to be present, to try his best, to accept that sometimes best wasn't enough, but that didn't mean stop trying. The health center grew. Within a year, they were seeing 500 patients a month. Within 2 years, they expanded to a second location. Marcus hired more staff, trained more doctors, built something that mattered. Something Sarah would have been proud of. He still had nightmares. Still woke up sometimes panicked, convinced he'd failed someone. But Victoria was there. Sophie was there. The work was there. And slowly, he learned that living meant accepting all of it. The grief and the joy, the failures and the successes, the past and the present. 2 years after the health center opened on a Saturday in October, Marcus drove to Arlington National Cemetery. He'd been avoiding it for 8 years. Too painful. Too final. But it was time. He found Sarah's grave easily. Section 60, where they buried the recent war dead. Her headstone was simple. Dr. Burtstorsau, Sarah Webb, Lieutenant Commander, U.S. Navy. beloved wife and healer. He stood there for a long time, not sure what to say. Finally, "I'm sorry it took me so long to visit. I was angry at you. For dying. For leaving me. For making me keep living when you didn't get to. That wasn't fair. None of it was fair." The headstone offered no response. He continued anyway. "I met someone. Her name's Victoria. She has a daughter, Sophie. She's 8 going on 30. Reminds me of you sometimes. Stubborn smart, doesn't let me get away with feeling sorry for myself." He smiled slightly. "We opened a health center. Free care for people who need it. Everything you used to talk about when we'd stay up late planning how we'd change the world. I did it, Sarah. I finally did it." His voice cracked. "I know you'd tell me to stop apologizing. You'd tell me to keep helping people because that's what we promised to do. You'd tell me loving Victoria doesn't mean I didn't love you. You'd tell me—" He stopped, breathed. "You'd tell me you're proud of me. Even though I wasted 6 years, even though I failed so many times, you'd say you're proud anyway because I didn't quit forever. I came back." He set down flowers, white roses, her favorite. "I love you. I'll always love you. But I'm going to keep living now. Really living, not just existing. I think that's what you'd want." He stood there until the sun started setting. Then he drove back to the city. Back to Victoria's house, his house too. Now, though they'd only made it official last month when he finally admitted he hadn't slept in his apartment in over a year. Sophie met him at the door. "Did you go see her? Your wife?" "Yeah, kiddo, I did." "Did you tell her about us?" "I did." "Do you think she's mad that you have us now?" Marcus knelt down to Sophie's level. "No. I think she's happy I found people who make me want to keep going, who remind me why I became a doctor in the first place, who make me better than I was." He pulled her into a hug. "I think she'd really like you." "I wish I could have met her." "Me too." Victoria appeared in the hallway. "Dinner's ready. Sophie, go wash your hands." Sophie ran off. Victoria moved closer, studying Marcus's face. "How are you?" "Better. I think I'm actually better." "Good." She kissed him gently. "Because I have something to tell you, and I need you to be in a good headspace for it." "What?" "The city council approved funding for a 3rd health center location. They want us to expand to the west side. They're calling it a model program. Other cities are asking for consultations." Victoria's eyes were bright. "Marcus, what we built, it's working. It's actually working. 3 locations. Thousands of patients. A program other cities wanted to replicate. Proof that healthcare could be about humanity instead of profit. That medicine could serve the people who needed it most instead of only those who could afford it." He thought about the 11 people from that building collapse, about Mrs. Anderson alive and recovering, about the hundreds of others they'd helped in 2 years, about the kids he still taught CPR to every week who were now teaching others, about the ripple effect of choosing to show up to try to believe that one person could make a difference. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It's working." That night after Sophie was asleep, Marcus and Victoria sat on the back porch. She'd finally convinced him to help her plant a garden last spring, herbs, mostly tomatoes, flowers that bloomed in impossible colors. He'd resisted at first, too much permanence, too much commitment to a future he wasn't sure he deserved. But now he understood. The garden was proof they were building something. Not just the health centers, a life, together. "I have something for you," Victoria said. She handed him a small box. Inside was a key. "What's this?" "Official key to the house. I know you've been living here for over a year, but you still call it my house. I want you to call it our house. Ours. You, me, Sophie. A family." Marcus stared at the key. Such a small thing, such enormous weight. "I don't know how to do this, the family thing. I failed at it once already." "You didn't fail. Sarah died. That's not the same thing." Victoria took his hand. "And you've been doing the family thing with us for 2 years already. You just haven't let yourself admit it. You show up for Sophie's school events. You cook dinner 3 nights a week. You help with homework. You're here, Marcus. You've been here. I'm just making it official. What if I mess it up? Then we'll figure it out together. That's what families do. She paused. I love you. Sophie loves you. And I think you love us too. Even if you're too scared to say it. He was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Loving people meant losing them. He knew that intimately. But not loving them meant being alone, meant wasting the life Sarah had died for, meant dishonoring everything they'd both believed about what made life worth living. I do love you, he said quietly. Both of you. It scares the hell out of me. But I do. Victoria smiled. Good. Now say you'll take the key. I'll take the key. Say you'll stay. I'll stay. Say you'll stop running. Marcus looked at her. At this woman who'd seen him at his worst and decided he was worth fighting for anyway. Who'd given him purpose when he'd forgotten what that felt like. Who'd built something beautiful out of his broken pieces. I'll stop running. She kissed him then. Not the careful kisses they'd shared over the past 2 years, tentative, afraid to push too hard. This was different. This was commitment. This was choosing each other despite everything that could go wrong. When they pulled apart, Marcus said, "Thank you." For what? For not giving up on me. For seeing something in me I couldn't see in myself. He gestured helplessly. For everything. You saved my life first. I just returned the favor. 5 years later, the Marcus Webb Community Health Network operated 7 locations across the city and had served over 50,000 patients. Marcus had trained dozens of doctors in his trauma protocols. The program had been replicated in 12 other cities. The CDC had invited him to speak about community health models. Medical schools wanted him to guest lecture. He said no to most of it. He wasn't interested in fame or recognition. He just wanted to keep showing up, keep helping people, keep honoring what Sarah had believed and what Victoria had helped him rebuild. He and Victoria got married in a small ceremony at the original health center, surrounded by staff and patients, and the community they'd built together. Sophie, now 13 and taller than Victoria, stood beside them as best man, maid of honor, and most enthusiastic supporter, all in one. About time, she announced when they said their vows. Everyone laughed. That night in the house that was finally officially completely theirs, Marcus pulled out Sarah's photograph. He'd kept it on his dresser for 8 years now. Face up, always visible. I know you'd like her, he told the photo. She's stubborn like you were. She doesn't let me quit on myself. She believes in impossible things like broken people healing, like healthcare being a right, instead of a privilege like love being possible after loss. He paused. I'm happy, Sarah. Really happy. And I think you'd be okay with that. He set the photo back down. Beside it, a new photo from that afternoon. Him and Victoria and Sophie, all grinning like idiots. A family. He'd spent 6 years running from grief. 2 years learning to live with it. 5 years building something meaningful from it. And now he was just living. Fully present. Fully committed. Fully alive. The nightmares still came sometimes. The doubt. The fear of failing. But they were manageable now. Background noise instead of overwhelming static. He'd learned to carry grief without drowning in it, to honor the past without being trapped by it. To accept that healing wasn't linear. Some days were hard. Some days were beautiful. And that was okay. Sophie knocked on the door. Dad, Mom says to stop being sentimental and come downstairs. We're celebrating. Dad. She'd started calling him that 2 years ago, tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence. He'd cried the first time. Tried to hide it, but Victoria saw anyway. Coming, kiddo? He took one last look at Sarah's photo. Then he went downstairs to his family. To his life. To the future he'd been too afraid to believe in, but had found anyway. Marcus Webb had spent 6 years invisible, hiding from responsibility and pain and the possibility of failing again. But a desperate 8-year-old girl had seen him when no one else did. Had trusted him when he didn't trust himself. Had given him a reason to stop running and start living. And in saving Victoria Chen's life that night in a parking garage, he'd somehow saved his own. Some stories end with triumph. Some end with tragedy. This one ended with something better. A man who'd lost everything, finding reasons to keep going, building something meaningful from his grief, and learning that second chances aren't about deserving them. They're about being brave enough to accept them when they come. Marcus was brave enough now. Finally, impossibly gratefully brave enough.